Jayadratha stands for calm, and Duryodhan stands for earth. These are two main things that they are the two important, what they call purushas or pursuits, which are required, which we carry out during our lifetime, sojourn on the earth. Now, both these are dictated by Prakriti, nature. Calm, so that Prakriti may continue, and earth, so that it may flower. But apart from these two, there are two others. One is dharma, and the other is moksha. The Whereas the calm and earth, they deal with Prakriti, dharma and moksha deal with purush. So the whole idea is that while we keep on enjoying and savoring what the infinite Brahmand is, we don't forget who we are. And this, we can not forgetting, can happen only if we bear in mind all the time that that we are Purush, and that we have to carry out all our actions as per dharma, maintaining a balance. Dharma means how to maintain a balance. If balance is maintained, then that will bring us closer to Purush. This dharma has been, what is dharma is a little difficult thing. But as Buddha had said, Lord Buddha, Gautam Buddha, he had mentioned that the path of moderation, a middle path, is the path that should be followed. And dharma precisely means that. It means balance or control. The other thing is moksha. Moksha is uh, destruction of your attachments. So if these two things are done, then we will be able to realize who we are. Now, destruction of attachment, whenever we perform any action, we get not only involved with it, involvement is necessary. Involvement is, in fact, essential. If we are not involved in any action, then we won't be able to do a good job. So involvement is necessary, but getting entangled in it, that is what is harmful, and that is what we should take care of. That we should never allow it to happen. And if this is practiced from a very young age, it becomes easier. Anyway, so once Dishala had become wife of Jayadratha, they became very powerful, and they were planning how to go about attacking the Pandavas. Meanwhile, this Shakuni, their uncle, who was the chief advisor to Duryodhan, he suggested that, look, if we go to a war with the Pandavas, we may or we may not win. How can we say we'll win? It is better that we get him to play to a game of dice, that is gambling. And in that, with my skill, Shakuni told Duryodhan, I will be able to defeat him, and then we'll be able to wrest whatever we want from him, and there won't be any bloodshed or nothing. Only these five brothers, they'll be there. We'll be able to easily conquer them. This, when Karn heard of this plan, that he wanted to, that Shakuni had suggested that Pandavas be called for a game of dice. He told Duryodhan, he said, Crown Prince, you are the foremost of the Kshatriyas. It does not behove you to be able to resort to cheating and dishonesty in order to defeat them. Let us have a battle with them on the field and show them our mettle also. But Duryodhan, he was himself a quite shrewd fellow, and he said that, look, today the Pandavas are our vassal, and we cannot wage war, and we cannot declare war upon our vassal for no rhyme or reason. It cannot be done. Secondly, uh, we'll be engaging in war. A lot of people will kill from outside. A lot of people will kill from their side. So Uncle Shakuni's suggestion that we call them for a game of dice is really very good. Let us follow that. Accordingly, uh, Shakuni, then when his a plan was accepted, he told Duryodhan that it is better you go and tell your father, because your father has a soft corner for you, and that he should send Vidur to the Pandavas and invite them for a game of dice. They will not, because the Pandavas will not be able to say no to Vidur. And thus Duryodhan approached his father and told him that they should invite Yudhishthir for a game of dice. When Vidur came to know that he was to be sent to as an emissary to the Pandavas, inviting them for a game of dice, he was really very upset. He went to the king, the Dhritarashtra, and told him, not only is this gambling is a very bad thing, and it is against it demeans our character. We should not only not permit it. The question of inviting anybody for a game of dice, which should be impossible. But Dhritarashtra, he was absolutely, taken over. Who was absolutely taken over by Duryodhan. Just could not refuse him. Told Vidur that no, 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 we better call these people, and what is there? They'll play for some time. That's enough. So we are not doing any harm to them. But he said no. Moral wise, it is bad. It should not be indulgent, and we should not encourage it. But Dhritarashtra didn't agree to it, and therefore Vidur was asked to go to from Hastinapur to Indraprasth and invite those the Pandavas. Anyway, Vidur, duty bound, since he was now, it had become his duty. So he went to Hastinapur, to Indraprasth. And when Yudhishthir saw him, he said, oh, he was very happy. He said, welcome, uncle. If you recall, Vidur was his uncle. He said, welcome, uncle. We are very fortunate to have you here. It's a blessing also. Then Vidur replied that unfortunately today I'm merely an envoy of the king of Hastinapur. Yudhishthir said, why unfortunate? I've come here with an invitation from the king for a game of dice to be played between you and Crown Prince Duryodhan. He said, oh, so nice of my uncle Dhritarashtra. Certainly I'll come over. We'll come over. Absolutely. Then Vidur said, look, I may be the missionary of the king, but I'm also your uncle. As your uncle, I'll advise you to reject this offer and not go to Hastinapur for a game of dice, because game of dice, any gambling is wrong, is harmful, and should not be undertaken. Yudhishthir merely said that, look, my uncle has invited me. If I don't honor his request, I'll be insulting him. That I will not do. And therefore, I will come over. Don't worry. I know, I'm aware that that Duryodhan will have the services of Shakuni, and Shakuni is a very crafty player. But we don't play to win or to lose. We play for enjoyment. And after a few rounds, we'll stop. Vidur told him that you cannot stop. Gamblers reach such a thing that once it bites you, you end up into complete ruin, and only thereafter you are able to get released. So please don't do that. This Yudhishthir, however, said that, uncle, it's like this. I am a Kshatriya, and a Kshatriya cannot refuse a challenge. If a challenge comes his way, he will accept it. So with that, the argument was closed. Vidur came back very in frustration because he could not convince Yudhishthir to be able to refuse that. All this happened because if you recall, when the Pandavas set out for Khandapras before it had been converted into Indraprasth, their mother Kunti had stayed behind it at Hastinapur, and several years had passed in between from the time they started building up Khandapras and converting into Indraprasth. Several years had passed. So when this opportunity came their way, when this opportunity came their way, immediately he wanted to grab it. Now, before that, this Yudhishthir, if you recall or if you see, that he kept on justifying what he should be doing, even though his uncle who was known to be a very wise person. His request was that you don't come for gambling. This happens because of a very strong hold of nature upon us. Our past tendencies, they are the ones who hold us, and they don't allow us to function through our senses, through really our wisdom or conscience. Now, that is why you see, whether it is all of us, in fact, get trapped by the three W's, wine, women, and wealth, or for power and fame, or for anything else. In fact, a lot of people, politicians, for example, they may have won once, they may have won twice, but they don't want to give the chair, they give up the chair, and they sometimes they'll go to the extreme of even getting their opponents eliminated, or they indulge in all kinds of other uh, illegal means, buying these votes or buying uh, the candidate off itself. Similarly, it can happen in the case of professors, number of very well-known professors. In fact, there is a case of Dr. against Dr. Radhakrishnan when he was still not the vice president. He had not been become the vice president. He was only a professor. He had stolen the thesis of one of his own students who had given that thesis for his PhD degree. And this gentleman, Dr. Radhakrishnan, it is alleged that he stole his thesis and incorporated all his ideas or all his things into his book, which became very famous, Indian Philosophy. I understand that a case was launched against Dr. Radhakrishnan in the High Court also. But anyway, so this is one of the ways this you lose your balance and you start to become greedy. Similarly, when it comes to it can be anything. It can be, like I just said, it can be politicians can hang on to power. Professors and other learned people can rob their students of this thing, or those who are obsessed with sex, they can commit rape, or those who are accept with, addicted to wine, they'll keep on taking liquor. So all these kind of things, this is the whole Prakriti has a fun out. Anyway, now once this, so Yudhishthir and the Pandavas were left behind all on their own. Krishna, if you recall, had been gone to the Dwarka, where some kings had challenged him, and there was a war threatening, so he had to leave there. And Kunti, their mother, was already in Hastinapur. She had not come over and joined them from Khandapras to Indrapras when they converted because it was too harsh. Anyway, so Yudhishthir, then he was very happy. He said, I'll go to Hastinapur, where apart from playing this game of dice, we will also meet mother and take her blessing. And then when Draupadi heard this, she said, oh, I wish I could have come along too. So Yudhishthir tells her, why don't you come along? Why don't you come along? We'll go there. You have not also seen mother for a long time. She said, I can't come because I'm in season. That means she was menstruating, and I'm only in my cheer, only on single clothing. I can't be in more clothing. She said, oh, you don't have to come in public. Then, so you come along. Accordingly, they all prepared, the four brothers and their wife Draupadi. They got ready to go to Hastinapur from Indraprastha. Now, this is again a little bit understanding is required, a metaphor. Ye pran or breath stands for divinity, whereas blood stands for animal propensities within us. And human beings are both divine as well as animals. Now, a woman is one who has her menstrual period every 28 days. And it is during this period that she sheds off all her blood. It is really shedding off all the animal traits within her. That's why she said a woman is supposed to be a repository of all the divine traits, not man. A woman is supposed to be a repository of all divine traits and values, human values, like compassion, like uh, yeah, forgiveness, and so many other this what do you call them, human. Okay, so many other qualities which are associated with the woman. Now, in ancient India, the dress used to be very simple. there was just a single piece of unstitched clothing which was worn both by men and women. The women had a slightly longer piece of clothing, and men had slightly smaller length. The men used to would wrap that clothing in a particular way around their waist, and that and it was only around their waist. The the torso would be bare. As far as women were concerned, their that piece of cloth which was called cheer used to be a little longer than the men's clothing, and this not only covered their waist downward, but a portion of it was taken over their torso and across the shoulders, and it covered their upper portion of the torso also. But nevertheless, it was just one piece of clothing. So everybody, the men, women, and even children, for example, a girl who had not yet reached puberty, she would be dressed in a very small, she would wrap a small piece of clothing, same piece of unstitched material around her waist in the form of a skirt. That was all the clothing that people wore. That they were always only in one dress. But nevertheless, there was some time when a man was honored. Then he used to be presented with what they call the angavastra, which means a body cloth. This body cloth was a piece of again unstitched material which was worn like a shawl. It could be draped over the shoulders and the front, and in the front it could be brought together. Now, but the men folk would generally neatly fold that angvas or the second cloth which was given to them and slung it over their shoulder. That's how, in fact, even today you'll find, at least in South India, you'll have find a lot of people wear dressed this way. And in fact, if you see, even in the north, they they don't have a angvastra, but they almost a lot of them will carry what they call angocha or some such name is there, uh, which is strung over the shoulder, which is kind of multiple purpose cloth which they use for, tying something, carrying something, or even for wiping themselves, the face, mouth, etc. Anyway, now in this case, what happened was that the Draupadi and the five brothers in this state they went to Hastinapur. At Hastinapur, since she was menstruating, she was immediately taken to a separate room as per tradition and housed there. Whereas they, uh, Pandav brother, although they had hoped that they will first be taken to their mother, they were straightway brought to the assembly hall, where already the game of dice, etc., was laid out and awaiting these people. And there were a lot of other, the kings and vassals, etc., surrounding them in the whole court. So this game of dice was to be played before the whole court. Just excuse me, please. Now, when this game of dice was there, when they reached that court, Duryodhan told Yudhishthir that we welcome you to this game of dice, and it's great to have you here. I would like to take the services of my uncle, Shakuni, who will throw the dice for me, and you can likewise call upon anyone whom you like, so that there's equality. Yudhishthir said, no, 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 nobody is required. I'll throw the dice myself. Well, Shakuni was not only a very crafty, clever, this thing, he was a little bit of cheat also. And he used loaded dice. So with the results that every time he threw the dice, Duryodhan won. And this continued. Initially, they wagered, this only some at stakes was some jewels, some gold, etc. Gradually, he kept on increasing, goading them, and the stakes became higher and higher till
विनीता इस पे आना है तो आ जाओ.
Sorry. Okay. Anyway, so this stakes became higher and higher until he put on stake his palace. Then after his palace, then he staked all his slaves. And when he lost that also, Then he staked his entire empire, or the kingdom that was not an empire till then. It was only a kingdom of Indraprasth. When he lost that also, then Yudhishthir says, "I'm sorry, I've lost everything. I've got nothing left." He said, "No, no, no. Your brothers are very much there. One by one, they can certainly be able to get back all that you've lost." So he started putting his brothers on stake one by one. Eventually, he lost all his four brothers. Then he said, "Okay, now the king can come and reclaim the. He will be able to. He should be able to get back all whatever is lost." So Yudhishthir put himself on stake also. When he lost that, then with great dejection, he said, "Now I've lost everything." But Shakuni was not to be, let him go like that. He said, "No, you still have got Panchali, the Lakshmi, and Lakshmi will be able to bring back all the wealth back." So uh, Yudhishthir placed his wife Draupadi also on stake. And of course, with his loaded dices, he once again, Duryodhan won. And all these people, the four brothers and Draupadi, now became so-called slave, and as per their, as per the dice which had been thrown. Once this had happened, now here this is again a big metaphor. What is that metaphor? That divinity can only be realized in human form, and the attainment of human birth is therefore a sign of good fortune. Yet man lives in an illusionary world, in a palace built by Maya, completely oblivious of his impending death. And throughout his life, he strives only to acquire material wealth, bring all the kings under his submission. He keeps on acquiring all kinds of silly things. He calls them gems and empire. He keeps on adding to empire. And essentially, he keeps on adding material wealth. He's absolutely enmeshed and enwrapped in ego. And whenever it is told that you should not do this, for example, Yudhishthir was told that gambling is bad. He said, no, 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 challenge has to be taken. And therefore, all the both Duryodhan or material wealth and greed, uh, they keep on enticing and challenging and coaxing the human being to keep on indulging in gambling with more and more stakes. Eventually, what happens is that after, you know, eventually a time comes when you have gambled not only this thing, you have gambled your own, all your brothers. Who are the brothers? All the brothers are your divine traits within you. And Draupadi represents the human being himself or the human spirit. And she is the one, the human birth. So when she is put on stake, it means that although you had an opportunity to be able to find release and moksha only through the human body, yet we are so blind to whatever is going on that we forget and waste our entire life and indulge in all kinds of gambling. So when we don't attend to ourselves and work towards our realization, then it's like putting on stake our entire lifetime and human birth and losing it. So this is what that metaphor means. That Yudhishthir is also within us. Draupadi is also within us. The four brothers are also within us. Duryodhan and Shakuni are also within us. So the gambling is merely is a metaphor which says that whereas we should have utilized the body for enlightenment purpose, for our own enlightenment, we forget about it and keep on wasting our time collecting material wealth and material wealth at eventually uh, which is like gambling our entire life, human life away. Once coming back to the story, once the Yudhishthir has lost not only his brothers but even their wife. Duryodhan then said that, okay, now you all are my slaves, and he told one of the he wanted to get revenge from against Draupadi. So he told one of the slaves, go to Draupadi and or bring that woman with five husbands here in the court. So that slave went to Draupadi and said that Yudhishthir, who was thoroughly intoxicated with gambling, put you on stake and he has lost. And now you are the slave of Duryodhan, and Duryodhan has set a command that you should be brought to the court there. Draupadi looked at the slave and asked, was I put on stake before Yudhishthir had lost himself, or was I put on stake after Yudhishthir lost himself? So this, of course, question query he couldn't answer. So he came back to the court and told Duryodhan, this is what Draupadi has asked for. He wants to know the answer. Duryodhan was not in any mood to listen to the all kinds of excuses. So he curtly told Dushasan, "You go and bring uh, that Panchali here, and I am not interested in any excuses." So Dushasan went there and curtly told Draupadi, "You have been won over and from in a game of dice, and now that you are a slave, you are required to be present in the court." So first she told him, "No, no, you can't be. You have. I can't be won over after Yudhishthir had lost his at stakes. So a slave who has lost him, who has already become slave, he doesn't own anything. So I am a free woman. The question of my going there doesn't arise." He said, "You're not a free woman, and you will jolly well come immediately with us now." Then again she pleaded. She said, "Look, I'm in season. I'm menstruating, which means I'm menstruating, and I cannot appear in public like this." Now, he said, whether you are menstruating or not, whether in whatever condition you have to come there. And she again explained to him that, look, I am only in a single piece of clothing. Normally, all ladies, when they go in public, then they are dressed in two pieces of clothing. But one is the one which they normally wear. The other is, like I said earlier, it is kind of a shawl which is draped over the shoulder. So, but here I don't have two pieces of clothing. I've come only in a single piece of clothing, so I cannot come there. He said, whether you are in season or not, whether you are in a single piece of clothing or not, you have to come over. It doesn't matter in how you are dressed. You are required now, so you have to come. When she felt that nothing she could do, so she rushed towards the women's apartment in order to escape from Dushasan. But Dushasan caught hold of her long, dark tresses, which she had, which are all bound in a very nice plate, thick plate, caught hold of her hair and dragged the screaming Draupadi to the gaming hall, the hall where everybody was waiting. Now here is again a metaphor. Hair, in case of men, stands for passion, and that is why you'll see that a lot of novices, uh, when they want to become monks, etc., sadhus, all the novices, they have their entire head shorn, tonsured. Now, this, of course, is only symbolic. It means that we are not going to think or indulge in sex, and we surrender sex. It is like putting on that orange or gerwa dress, the dhopi or the gerwa dress. It's again telling everybody that uh, we are no longer giving way to our passions, and our passions are within our control. It's also as a kind of a reminder to everybody else, not only reminder to them, but a signal to everybody else not to that they should be left alone and they should not be tempted with all kinds of sexual things. Anyway, uh, in case of women, however, it is not only that hair represents passion. In case of women, hair represents values, human values, like compassion, humility, selflessness, faithfulness, etc. So these are human values: love, affection, uh, compassion, mercy. These are things which a woman has by her nature, and so. When her hair is being caught and dragged, it means that all her values have been taken control of. And but remember, these metaphors are all within us. All these characters are within us. So the demonic traits within us, they have captured the human values which are also within us, and they are bringing them. They are, having captured them. They want to dominate them. Now, Draupadi, of course, as per the story, Draupadi, when she was being dragged there, she was shrieking. And in that condition, when she reached there, then she appealed to the court. And he said, look, I've been brought here by force. Now, brought here by force also, see, when a man catches hold of a woman's hand and drags him or catches hold of her hand, it means that he proposes or he promises to take care of her and take care of her for life. That is, he is going to get married to her. But when a man catches hold of a woman by her hair and drags her, that means he is now uh, captured all her values, all the human values which are then has been captured by this thing. Now, when Draupadi was dragged in this state, then she appealed to all the elders there and said, "Look, I've been dragged here, but my husband had not was already a slave before he put me on stake. So I am a free woman. I cannot be treated as a slave or considered as a slave." Bhishma, who was there, he said, "Look, this is a very subtle thing, and morality is very difficult for me to judge whether what is right and what is wrong." Meanwhile, what happened is they looked at Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir also, he was a very knowledgeable. He is supposed to be Dhanraj. He merely held his head down in shame because he is responsible for creating that situation. Vikarna, one of the brothers of Duryodhana, he came out in support of Draupadi and said, "Look, Draupadi is apart from the fact that Yudhishthira had put on stake after he had become already a slave, and a slave cannot put anything else on slave because nothing belongs to him. So Yudhishthira, his wife did not belong to him in the sense that more than that, she was the wife of four other men. So if all four had not given their consent to Yudhishthira to be for placing her on stake, so she is a free woman." When Karn heard this argument, he said, "Look, Vikarna, you keep quiet. You are very young. You don't understand. There are elders like Bhishma and Yudhishthira to be able to decide on the matter." Anyway, Vidur who was also there. He said, "Look, already a great injustice and impropriety has been committed against the daughter-in-law of the Kuru family, and this is not a good omen. The Kuru family will have to pay the price for all this thing." Duryodhan, who was listening to this, said, "You keep your counsel to yourself." He was very rough, and he did not give Vidur that kind of respect that he should have got mother, that he used to get from others, and he should have given also because of his knowledge and righteousness. But Duryodhan did not care for righteousness. He said, "You keep your counsel to yourself. The others will decide there." Anyway, now this is a question of here when Draupadi poses this question whether I am not a free woman. It actually is whether we have free will. A human being, we could keep on performing lots of every waking minute. We keep on performing some act of the other. Now, are these acts performed as per some kind of program which we come with, like artificial intelligence? We have dolls or whatever, even machines. They keep on working as a program. Are we something like that, or do we have a choice that we can take decisions based upon our choice? Now, if you ask any individual, he said, "Yes, I am the person who takes decision, and I decide whether I should do this or not." So, but really, we don't really know today, and even modern science is not really aware, has not been able to decide whether we are moved entirely by our DNA or our tendencies or some factor which is within us, uh, which is driving us. And although it may appear that as if we are taking conscientious decision ourselves, Nevertheless, it may be because of past tendencies, and it may be that even though we want to do something else, we will not be able to do it. So we don't have any choice that way. This is one way of looking at it. The other way, of course, is whether we have a choice or not choice depends upon our karma. Now, whatever we do here, actions, these actions form our karma, and this karma gets translated into what are called tendencies. These tendencies remain with us after death also. And if we do not utilize our mind properly, we will be forced to act as per our tendencies. When we are forced to act as per our tendencies, then our future, whatever is going to happen, is already determined. And then we can say that the stars or whatever, our destiny is firmly known. And this can be predicted. However, if it is not that we don't have control ourselves, because destiny, when we are born again, our past karmas decide the situation in which we will be born. It does not decide on how will act. It only decides upon the situation that will be born. Then from the situation will emerge certain actions. Now, in that action, we have a choice. So we always have a choice whenever we are presented, whenever we are required to carry out a certain action. In that choice, if we don't exercise our choice judiciously, then we will be working as per our tendencies. Then, of course, like I said, this is the outcome is predictable. However, if we exercise our choice judiciously, knowing fully well, or work as per our conscience, then it may be against our tendency. That is the building of our fate or our destiny. So there are two kinds of things that may happen. If we have a free will, but that free will is only uh, in respect of the action that we have to perform. The situation that there occurs, that is not within our will, that's not within our control, and that is dictated by our past karmas or action. Now, Duryodhana was one of those people who would act only uh, as per his tendencies. In fact, in the Mahabharata somewhere, it is mentioned there that although I'm slightly jumping, but still it's okay. That Duryodhana used to commit a lot of wicked things. And Krishna once went and told him that you should not be doing this. These are all wrong things. Duryodhana merely told Krishna that you don't have to tell me what is right and what is wrong. I know what is right and I know what is wrong. But I can't help it. If I'm doing something that is wrong, if, then it is just beyond my control. I just cannot help it. I'm so driven toward doing it. So that is what happens. That there is no free will in his case, and in his case is what the Hastinapur. That is why that is that Hastinapur of Duryodhana. Hastinapur means the elephant mind, or the mind which is driven by destiny, which is predictable. But if you are able to control yourself, not be driven by your tendencies, then destiny you can control. Then that is the destiny, that is the one which has resulted from the conversion of Khandapras into Indrapras. That is the destiny that you have within your hand. So free will really is only in respect of this situation, is in respect of the action that can be carried out. But as far as the situation which is concerned, the situation is not within our control, and the situation in which we find ourselves, in which we are born, it arises from our past karma. Okay.